It's all about the Seahawks at the moment. It's time to get to know our opponent. Alex, are you ready for this?
I am
rivalry week.
It's rivalry week. It's a big week, and we got a big-time guest from Quests from the West. It's Sam Belcher. He's here to talk from the Always Compete Seahawks podcast about the Seahawks team and just what to expect, areas that maybe they can attack the 49ers, maybe some places where they have some strengths and we have some weaknesses. I think this is going to be a fun convo.
Yeah, I think so. I'm looking forward to getting into this. This is my first time being able to talk to Sam. And so I'm excited to hear what he has to say and how he answers these questions because he's really tapped in to how the Seahawks operate. So I'm excited to get into it.
Let's get into this thing right now with Sam from the Always Compete Seahawks podcast. We got Sam from the Always Compete Seahawks podcast. Sam, let them know where they can find you.
You can find me on YouTube at the Always Compete Seahawks podcast. Also, you can find me wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, the whole thing. It's there under the Always Compete Seahawks podcast. Guys, appreciate you for having me on. Very, very, very much excited to dive on in. It's a rivalry week. In my opinion, best rivalry in the NFL. It's become the most heated recently. There's a lot of bad blood between these two teams. I'm ready to dive on in. I know that you guys have some injuries. I know that you guys have a lot of injuries that, I think we're okay.
You had to start with the injuries.
It's always important to get the full scope to start. Get the full scope. So I know that you guys have. What's up with George Kittle?
Right now, it's not anything too serious.
Yeah, it's a calf.
It's a calf.
Yeah.
It's a calf injury he's dealt with in the past. So this is a similar strain or whatever it is that he's dealing with to what he's dealt with before. So It doesn't seem like they're too worried about it. They've really limited him this week and not practiced the first couple of days and just kind of let him ease his way into it.
Because he hasn't practiced. That's the only reason I'm really asking about that.
Yeah, that's fair.
I mean, so I guess if we're just going to dive right on in and talk about this game, I think the headline of this game is Seahawks offense versus the 49ers defense. It's kind of been like that for the last couple of years with how these teams have been built. The Seahawks, the last maybe 2 years when the 49ers have begun to get competitive again, have been built around this kind of, we have two really good receivers and a consistent run game. And then the 49ers have been built around, we have a really good pass rush and really good linebackers. We're gonna be able to shut you down, and it's kind of been that way for the last couple of years, and it shows in these matchups. It shows. So, I mean, so the main thing that I want to talk about for the Seahawks is your guys' pass rush scares me. No, I'm not even gonna lie. It scares me. I think Nick Bosa, I've heard, has looked explosive. I haven't really seen much. Oh,
we're losing you. We're losing you a little. We lost you a little bit there, so I wasn't able to hear what that was.
Really?
So go ahead. Yeah, go ahead and repeat that. You're fine. You're fine.
Yeah, Nick Bosa, I've heard he has caught a little bit of fire. I heard that he's looked better, which is good to hear because I despise injuries, no matter whether it's for the Seahawks, the Niners, any team in the NFL. I despise injuries. They're the worst. So the fact that he's on his way to recovery is a really good sign. I mean, my main concern and my main focus on this game is how will the Seahawks receivers match up versus your secondary, which is actively in the banged up zone. It's in that area where
I like that, and banged up zone.
It might be a nice way to say it.
That's the nicest way anyone's put it. You're right. You're definitely right.
Yeah, you guys have had Jason Verrett, K'Wan Williams. Is there another one that I'm missing? Because I know Josh Norman got hurt.
He's still dealing with stuff.
So I don't know how serious it is. I haven't.
He was coughing up. He was coughing up blood. It's a lung contusion. So I mean, this is the thing we wanted to get into you because this is one of the biggest questions going into this game. Daunte Adams, at times, ran wild all over Diamador Lenore and just secondary and what the Niners were trying to do with the young rookie out there in space on him. When Josh Norman was out there, it wasn't as bad. when Emmanuel Mosley was on him, wasn't as bad. We didn't lose those matchups very often. But you guys have two. They only had really the one that we were super worried about. You guys have two guys that we're extremely worried about. Can DK how are the Seahawks going to get this done? Are they going to isolate DK in space and let him operate over the middle, kind of like they did against the Minnesota Vikings? Or is it going to be more Tyler Lockett this week? If you had to guess which way it goes, who is the guy who has the bigger game between the two of them?
In my heart, I want to lean towards, let's put Tyler Lockett on the rookie, because Russ and Tyler Lockett kind of share this wavelength. They always know what they want to do, no matter whether they have to say it with words or not. Russ can just flash his eyes, and Tyler Lockett knows what has to happen and what's going on. So in my mind, I feel like it would be smarter to put Tyler Lockett on Diamador Lenore, who I heard had a good camp, but I did watch that Packers game and he did have some rough times. I mean, it is Daunte Adams. Everybody has a rough time with Daunte Adams. Even Jalen Ramsey was jumping up and down trying to cover Daunte Adams. So, you can't really look too far into that, but I would say that to put the receiver with much more experience and much more, I would say, kind of connection with Russell Wilson on the rookie seems smart on paper, at least. Now, I don't know if the Seahawks are going to go for a more let's try to outsmart him approach, or if they're just going to go, let's try to overwhelm him by putting DK Metcalf on him, which is, to be fair, overwhelming for maybe any player in the NFL just by his size. So it really depends. Do you want to try to scare him, or do you want to try to play like this mental, try to pick him apart kind of game? If I had to pick, I would say that I would probably guess that DK Metcalf has a pretty good track history versus the Niners. Besides that Week 17 game, he's had consistent showings versus San Francisco. I would probably say that DK has a bigger game, just because I feel like DK is probably going to get more targets with the year that Tyler Lockett's having. They might try to show more attention to Tyler Lockett's side. Once again, I feel like it really comes down to defensive scheming and where they think they're going to go. It's a pick your poison situation. Do you want to shut down Tyler Lockett? Do you want to stop DK Metcalf? Which way are you going to move the safety is the question. So I would probably say that I would assume DK Metcalf has a bigger game, but I would not be shocked if Tyler Lockett has a bigger game also.
Yeah, and I have a big question for you, because you saw how Green Bay, you watched the game, how they attacked the 49ers defense was all quick. Everything was get the ball out quick and let these guys operate. Because they didn't have any chance of stopping the 49ers defensive pass rush if they would have waited. Can Seattle duplicate that, or will they try to take the deep shots, which they always like to do with Russ, let Russ extend plays and get the ball down the field? Can they take that chance of this 49ers defense getting to them? So is it a duplicate decision, or are they going to do what they always do and just let Russ cook?
That's a really good question, because in Week 1 we saw this Seahawks team that liked to have like 5 dink and dunks before they take the deep shot, which is very non-Seahawks like of the last couple of years. We do have a new offensive coordinator. I always joke that Brian Schottenheimer, the on paper, the offense was really good. Like when you watch the game, it's run, deep pass, run, deep pass, run, deep pass. And it works sometimes, and that's how you get the plays posted on Twitter. But other times, like DK Metcalf is triple covered, and Russ has to throw it to him because that's how the play is designed. So I feel like it comes down to what Shane Waldron feels like. And I do think that we will end up attacking that short game a lot more. We've seen a high uptick in the use of screens, especially tight end screens have gone way up, which I know is kind of a San Fran staple with the whole kind of, George Kittle having block for a second, release, and then get a couple blockers in front of him and have him go out. So, and there's that big connection of Kyle Shanahan, Coach Sean McVay, who coached Shane Waldron, who is now the offensive coordinator for the Seahawks. And I know they all kind of share that system. So we've really seen that begin to come into effect. And I just think that overall, we need to begin to execute these plays more, because there's a ton of plays where they will bottle it up and the play goes awry, which happens, but it happened a little too much. So I would say that we need to find consistency first by trying to attack the short game. Maybe if the 49ers try to adjust mid-game, then we can switch things up, maybe try to attack the middle and deep ball a little bit more.
I like that, and that's definitely something they're going to want to try and do. And the big thing with Seattle typically is that run game and what they want to do with that run game. And the 49ers defense, unfortunately, has struggled the first couple of weeks with the run game. They really have. There were times where Aaron Jones was gashing, and then Miles Sanders had his moments as well. This is something with Seattle, and you talked about this on Quest the West for a little bit, where Seattle will get that run game established, things will be going well, and then they'll get away from it. Mm-hmm. Is this a game, knowing what you're facing with this 49ers front, knowing that there's some depletion at the linebacking room as well, and that there's sometimes favorable run boxes for Seattle? Is this the game where you would see Seattle potentially finally getting away from this tendency and wanting to, especially if they get the run game established early, sticking with it for 4 quarters?
I think ultimately Chris Carson has been insanely efficient. Last week, I believe he had like 12 carries for 80 yards, which is ridiculous. He did have a 30-yard run, which was a chunk of that, obviously, but still, the stats and especially the tape doesn't lie. Chris Carson was getting 5, 6, 7 yards a carry, and he was doing it consistently. So with this 49ers team and with these tough division rivalry games where you know that's going to be a gritty kind of like long game where they're going to be clawing to the very end, no matter if you're up by 50 or you're up by 0 and it's a tie game. So we should really stick with it. And I think that ultimately at this time of year, Pete Carroll especially will see the stats that Chris Carson has been putting up and how efficient he's been. And especially with Pete Carroll being Pete Carroll, loving to establish the run and let the defense rest and then let the defense come back out. It's something that I feel like we should really take advantage of this week. And I think that I would expect we will probably adjust to it a bit more this week than we have in the past couple of weeks.
Every single time the 49ers play the Seahawks, there's always questions about the Seahawks offensive line. That is always a big topic of conversation. You got Dwayne Brown, so you got that going. But talk about the other guys on that offensive line and how much improvement you've seen from them early on in this season. And if you're optimistic they're going to be able to handle, these big guys inside like Javon Kinlaw, when Eric Armstead moves inside, if they can handle those guys, because that is where the pocket needs to be moved for the 49ers to be able to keep Russ in the pocket and then ultimately get to him. If not, he's going to have room to operate and he's going to make plays. So I'm really curious what you think about those other 4 guys on the offensive line.
Like you said, Dwayne Brown's as solid as it gets. Whoever's on him, I'm confident that he can hold his own or even be downright dominant at sometimes. So when it comes to the other guys, Damian Lewis is a very good run blocking, still questionable, young pass blocking guard. I feel like he still has a lot to grow on that pass blocking area. However, he has been a little bit better this year at sometimes, but that run blocking, I mean, he's one of the best run blockers in the league, like statistically last year. He's a mauler. And same goes for the other side with Gabe Jackson, who we got this offseason. Just a big boy who just goes forward. And he can even if he's getting, he's getting looks from guys like DeForest Buckner even in week 1, where he was able to stop him efficiently and consistently and have him just, and have Russ be able to still operate comfortably in the pocket. Week 1 was the only game where we had a fully kind of healthy offensive line, and Russ had a pretty good game. He had a pretty comfortable game. He was able to stay in there, was able to find his receivers a lot. The big question is right tackle. Brandon Shell has not practiced with I believe an ankle sprain. He played really, really, really well in week 1. Like, we're talking high 80s grade from PFF, was totally dominant. I really liked him last year. I feel like he's taken some steps in the time that he's played. If he doesn't play, we're probably looking at either Jamarco Jones, who's had, his moments here and there, but just he's not great. I'm going to be honest. And then you also have the undrafted rookie, Jake Curran from Cal, who once again is good, but he's not there yet. He's played a lot. He hasn't really stuck to one position. He's played both guards and he's played both tackles. So we're going to see where that goes. I do like Dwayne Brown. I like what we have at the guards. I just feel like on that right tackle spot, especially where you could even match up a guy like Eric Armstead or Nick Bosa, shift him out there and get that mismatch. It's not a great look for Russell Wilson. At least it's not on his blind side. That's really all I have to say about the right tackle spot. Just at least it's not on his blind side. At least he can see what's going on. So,
fair.
Yeah,
that's fair.
That's kind of my concerns.
49ers fans are not going to take backups lightly anymore. It's just not going to happen after everything that Aaron Rodgers just did with a third-string left tackle, a second-string left guard, and a third-string right guard, and things going well. For the most part for Green Bay, a lot of that having to be with the fact that Aaron Rodgers just knows how to get the ball out quick, and Aaron Rodgers went into this game knowing, if I don't get the ball out in 2 seconds, I'm getting hit. And if you watch the film back, that was going to be the case. Russ sometimes tends to hold on to the ball a little bit longer. That's because some of the routes and the concepts, like you talked about, right? Run, play action, and everything's deep down the field. So that is definitely something to keep an eye on. It's definitely something to watch there, especially with Shell. That was going to be the next thing I was going to ask you about, was with his injury, what's going on there with the O-line. You already addressed it. I appreciate that. You're one step ahead of me. I like that, Sam. But Tyler Lockett, this is a big question for 49ers fans. He had a limited practice on Wednesday. Thursday, he comes out, not practicing. What have you heard? What are you seeing? Are you worried about Tyler Lockett, or is this just a precautionary? They're resting him because he's going to be good to go Sunday?
There hasn't been much talk in the Seahawks area of what this really could mean as of yet, because it's still a fairly new thing. We're still Pete Carroll did not have a press conference today, so we really don't know what that might mean. I would suspect that it's probably similar with George Kittle, how it's just like, why have to make him practice when we can just let him rest, let him be healthy and make sure that he can recover fully. He did have a little bit of a scary looking knee injury that luckily turned out to be not severe.
Well, I was going to ask, it looked like a knee injury. Everyone was talking about it being a knee injury. Then it was diagnosed as an ankle. And then when I'm reading the injury reports, it's a hip.
Yeah,
it's moved all over the place.
Once again, that might be a little bit of a better case for Tyler Lockett playing, because it might just be some soreness. Might just be, maybe one day he's feeling it lower, one day he's feeling it up high when he's running around and stuff. It could always be something a little different. I do suspect he will play. Tyler Lockett has played in games pretty consistently, even when he's been limited. There was a couple times where he's never practiced and he's played. So, I would expect that he'd play on Sunday, especially in a game, as big as this in the division that we play in.
If you could pick one advantage that Seattle has on offense against the 49ers defense, like one particular thing that you think they could really take advantage of, what would that be?
That's a good question, because there's a lot of things that Seattle can do really well, and I feel like the main question is, how can the 49ers stop that? I would probably say, watching last week's game with what Green Bay had, I would probably say that Seattle's pass game, especially the top two receivers versus the 49ers corners, which are thin, and they're kind of having this like next man up thing about that entire starting cornerback cast of how, all right, this guy's hurt, it's time for you to step up. It's been like that. I mean, for a couple of years for the 49ers, I hate to say, but it's been like that for a couple of years. So, I feel like that's definitely the main thing. Not necessarily, I'm not even sure how it will fare in the game, but just game planning wise, those two guys can totally change how you game plan or make a scheme for this team. And like you mentioned earlier with Chris Carson, he's a serious threat. So if you guys want, they might game plan to stop the deep and middle passes, but then maybe Seattle can be totally planning for a heavy run game. We don't really know yet. I think that on paper, especially, that's definitely the biggest strength that Seattle has versus this 49ers team, of how you have like you said, you have a young rookie corner. You have guys who have signed and have had to play the next week starting. So it's a lot. So I feel like that's definitely on paper the biggest advantage we can have.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you there, and it's an advantage everyone seems to have right now on San Francisco. It's frustrating. It's annoying. Look, the big thing for me, and the thing that I am most interested at seeing heading into this game is San Francisco's run game and what we're going to do now at the running back position. Trey Sermon, is a week removed further from his concussion and being cleared, which may mean he may get a little bit more run. Elijah Mitchell is trending towards possibly playing. We're not quite sure yet. He did get limited practice in again today for the second consecutive day, and now we're leading into Friday. We'll see what happens. The big thing for me is how important is it for Seattle to slow down the run game? And do you see them trying to replicate and do something similar to what Green Bay and what the Lions did late and what the Eagles did at putting 5-6 guys up at the line of scrimmage and really trying to just tell them, no, I don't think so. You need to throw the football.
That's another good question. I think that it's very, very, very crucial for the Seahawks to attempt to bottle up this 49ers run game with how they're built and how they use their offense. In the last couple of years, we've really seen that the 49ers are a run-first team most of the time. That's what we've really seen from them. They're a running team. I wouldn't say that they're a passing team. I would say that they definitely have traveled more towards running the football. So when it comes to when it comes to how the Seahawks play that, when you have Bobby Wagner and Jamal Adams, it's a little different. Maybe two of the better run-stopping defensive players in the NFL, I would say. So the question is, do you really need to have those guys, those extra guys in the box when you can have guys like Jamal Adams and Bobby Wagner, who, Jamal Adams is a shown sideline-to-sideline football player. If the play's on one side, he'll be there no matter what, no matter where he starts the ball. And Bobby Wagner seems to just be a tackle machine this year. He had 20 tackles versus Tennessee, which is ridiculous. It's a team record. Bobby Wagner has always been a tackle machine, but this year especially, he really has, with how teams have been just absolutely shoving the football down our throats in the middle run game. So, once again, when you have guys like that, it's really good. It's just so key that we stop this, because the Seahawks have had the last 2 weeks is really, they've had 3 and out, and then the other team goes out and has a 7-minute drive of 10 plays where they just pound the rock. And then you go out and you have like a 5-play or a 6-play, punt, where they maybe only takes up 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes, and then they have to go out and then stop another 5-minute drive. So it's been that constant loop, and it's very, very important that the Seahawks prevent that this week. Just prevent what's happened the last couple of weeks of you're leaving the defense out to dry. That's really what they're doing. So you got to stop with that. But in the case of stopping the run, especially early in the game, I'm confident in the sense that Bobby Wagner and Jamal Adams, Jordan Brooks, guys like that, who are fast, rangy, great tackling football players, to be able to play sideline to sideline and stop that run game.
Yeah, I kind of like that answer. I think that's what they'll probably do, is put Jamal Adams in the box, let him play on the line of scrimmage sometimes. That'll also help prevent Jimmy Garoppolo coming out the other side on the boots. So it seems like a good plan, and I love it, because that means I get to get George Kittle one-on-one with Jamal Adams for some blocking time, so we get some aggressive style. And I just kind of want to see that matchup. I think it'll be fun. I think there'll be a lot of talking, and it'll be physical.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
The one thing I'm interested in is because the 49ers signed Jaquez Patrick a couple weeks ago. And he's a big running back, 6'2", 228 pounds. They signed from Cincinnati Bengals. And we've seen the success that Derrick Henry had against Seattle running up the middle. Could there be a possibility the 49ers use a big running back and, like you said, wear the Seattle defense down, just getting up the field and using Seattle's quick speed to a disadvantage, where they can take advantage of the smaller size of, someone like a Jordan Brooks? Is that something that you think would work against Seattle?
Yeah, the main thing that really happened versus Derrick Henry was his ability to fall forward and gain a couple extra yards just from falling forward, where we'd bottle him up at the line, and then he'd get a push where it goes from a 1-yard gain to a 4-yard gain in the snap of your fingers. So a big running back has shown to be able to somewhat break our defense down. And I don't know if the Seahawks are kind of suited up to be able to now stop that. I don't know if they're making any changes to maybe how they're setting up versus bigger running backs or how they're setting up versus better running teams. Because as we've said the last couple of weeks, they've gotten the ball run down their throats. I think they have the most yards per game allowed by any team. And that comes after only allowing like 50 yards to Jonathan Taylor in the first game of the season. So the main question really comes down to, can the Seahawks be able to get better at tackling and finishing those plays where they have a successful stop and keep it from turning into a play where he can keep chugging his legs and get 4, 5, 6 yards.
Yeah, that's true. It's going to be big. It's going to be important, man. And Seattle being able to try and slow down this run game for the 49ers, being able to try and attack right on the outside with the wide receivers against our depleted, our banged up DB group. This is going to be a big matchup, and it's crucial. We talked about this on Quest for the West, right? This is crucial for both teams. The 49ers trying to stay ahead in the NFC West, not drop to that 500 record, keep themselves a game back. And for Seattle, you don't want to go to 1-3. You don't want to drop your first in the NFC West. This is big time for both teams. Not only is it big for like their livelihood in the NFC West, it's big for the season for both of these teams in the division to keep themselves in contention in the hunt for the NFC West and to give us some talking points on the Quest for the West. That's also important. It's also a good thing as well. Yeah. Man, Sam, thank you so much for coming on, man. We really appreciate it. And tell everyone again where they can find you.
Once again, you can find me on YouTube at the Always Compete Seahawks Podcast, posting Seahawks content on the regular, and also find me wherever you get your podcasts at the Always Compete Seahawks Podcast. We appreciate you for having me on. It's always fun talking some football, especially in the midst of a game like this, in the anticipation of a game like this. It was really fun. Once again, I appreciate you for having me on, and it was a really fun time.
And we enjoyed it as well.
Awesome. I enjoyed it.
Always fun, man. See you on Quest for the West.
Yep, I will see you. It's gonna be a hot week. After 2 division games, it's gonna be a hot week. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Maybe some spicy talk. We'll see.
Yeah, some spicy. There's gonna be some more. It's gonna be a little bit more angry. I can feel like just based on whoever wins. It's either gonna be a very upset me, kind of lounging back in my chair, or it's going to be a very upbeat me talking about how the Seahawks maybe just saved their chance to win the NFC West. So it's gonna be a fun week, and once again, I appreciate you for having me on. And the NFC West, man, it is what it is. That's all I really got to say.
It's a tough one. It's a tough one indeed, man. We'll see you on the next one, guy.
Yep. All right. I will see you
later, Sam.
Later.
Well, that was a fun conversation, Alex. Really got to get into it and learn a little bit about the Seahawks and just figure out kind of where the 49ers need to attack. I'll tell you the one thing that stood out to me was when he's talking about the right tackle for the offense. I'm thinking to myself, there's going to be opportunities there. D Ford licking his chops, Nick Bosa being flipped to that other side. I think that's an advantage the 49ers have is their pass rush against this Seahawks defensive line, and I'm not convinced that the Seahawks are ready to go to a quick passing game to alleviate the pressure that is going to be caused by this 49ers defensive line. I think that they still want to take shots. This is going to be an interesting matchup.
It's different too, right? It's different with Russell Wilson. He's a smaller quarterback in space. He doesn't have the size that Aaron Rodgers does. He doesn't have the quick release that Aaron Rodgers does. So it's different. You can't necessarily execute it the same way. Trying to duplicate is hard if you're not Aaron Rodgers, right? It's really difficult. There's only a handful of quarterbacks in the league that can do stuff like that. And so when, Green Bay comes out with that kind of game plan and executes it, you tip your hat. You tip your hat to LaFleur and what they did. And, Seattle's going to try and do something similar, but it's just not going to be the same. It's not going to come off the same way. And so the 49ers are safe in that sense, and that you're not necessarily going to have to worry about too much Russell Wilson getting the ball, getting the snap, and then being able to go to that. They rely a lot on play action, and Sam talked about that. Talked about them run, play action, deep shot, run, play action, deep shot, run, play action, deep shot. Play action is important for Seattle. It hasn't been as important as San Francisco, but it's still important. But that's going to be my big thing, and my thing that I want to watch is can Seattle actually focus in on the run and keep the run dialed in for 4 quarters? Because I think it's an area where they could have some success because of the weakness of the linebacking core, the fact that they're going to run a lot of 3 wide receiver sets, which means a lot of nickel for the 49ers, meaning Demo's on the field. You have less great tacklers in space, and you have favorable run boxes. Favorable run boxes, good thing for them. But we got a game preview coming up, an all 22 film breakdown game preview, and that Seattle line, blocking scheme-wise and execution, it isn't the same as what we've seen from Green Bay. What Green Bay put on film in Week 3, right, against the 49ers was actually a very impressive display by their O-line. They actually played extremely well for there being a lot of question marks there. Seattle in Week 3 did not do the same.
No, and that's something that's going to be fun to get into when we get into that tomorrow on Patreon. So everyone who has an opportunity, go check that out. But it's exciting to get to look at these matchups. And we've talked about this before. Styles make fights. Matchups are important. And it is a completely different matchup for the 49ers against the Seahawks than it was for 49ers versus Packers. Because you're right. There's so many different things, right, that go into it. The Seahawks do have that guy, Wayne Brown, on the outside. Thanks to the new subscriber. We appreciate it.
UOIR. Welcome to the Cutback crew.
Yeah, definitely appreciate it. And there's going to be opportunities, though, for the 49ers to be successful. But I'm curious to see how Seattle ends up playing against this 49ers run game. If they load the box, Sam seemed to think it would probably be, just Jamal Adams coming up there, which makes sense to me. Put 5 guys on the line of scrimmage, let him play the outside, and then, of course, be there in case Jimmy Garoppolo tries to boot out on the play action. Seems like a good game plan, something that they've done and executed before. Let's see if they go to it. And if they do, hopefully we get the matchup that we're all looking forward to. George Kittle, one-on-one with Jamal Adams in blocking, where Kittle can really dominate. Let's see if he can take that defensive end down.
That will be some delicious pancakes that'll be served up for San Francisco. And you know what? Kittle's going to want to, too. Because Kittle had some missed blocks in Week 3. He was a little frustrated with some of the blocks and the opportunities that he missed out on.
It's true.
What better way, Anthony, to take a small, tiny, fast but non-assuming defensive end out there in Jamal Adams coming down from his safety spot to play in his natural position, his natural habitat there on the outside of the just off the edge. And for George Kittle to just layeth the smacketh down all over his tiny behind, it'd be glorious.
Yeah, Greg Cassell loves Jamal Adams, so I think George Kittle can show the love as well. It's going to be fun to watch, and there's going to be a lot of cool matchups. How DeMeco Ryans plans to take away both of those receivers, which Sam thought was going to be a huge advantage for Seattle. I deem to think that is an advantage for Seattle, those 2 receivers against our secondary. However, I think it can be negated by this pass rush that the 49ers have. So getting to Russel Wilson early, making sure you keep integrity in your pass lanes when you're rushing, and get after this guy. Don't sit back and let him pick you apart, but bring pressure and make him beat you. Make him make quick decisions. He's going to do it a lot of the time, but you gotta live by it and die by it. And hopefully you can get to him more than he gets to you.
That's the goal. That is the goal right there, man. Get to Russ more than the defense can get to us, and more than Russ can get to us, because Russ will get to you at some point in time.
Yeah,
it's just a matter of time. You saw it on the Madden simulation. You watched that. If you missed that, go check that out. Big dub for the 49ers. But it's one of those things, right, where Russ struggles, but then Russ gets his, because Russ gets his. That's what Russ does. Russ will cook at some point in time. Threw for 200 yards in the Madden simulation. He did also throw 3 picks, but he got his 200 yards. Right? He cooked when he needed to. He had the big touchdown pass to DK late. So Russ is going to get it when he gets it, taking it away, making it as hard as humanly possible, making him really have to work in order to make those plays. Make him make the Twitter highlights like Sam talked about. Make him make one of those types of throws. If he makes one of those types of throws and one of those types of plays situation, the Niners are blanketed, the coverage is there, and he just makes one of those Russell Wilson magical plays. I can live with it. You know what I can't live with, Ant? Him scrambling outside of the pocket, being able to plant his feet, no pressure, and be able to throw a dime downfield to somebody because there's busted coverage because we didn't do enough to contain him. We didn't do enough to keep him in the pocket, and we're not hitting him when he's throwing.
Yeah, the DeMeco Ryans talked all about this. This is execution for his defense. It's all about making sure you're in the right spots and executing it. And if they do that, they have a good chance to beat Seattle, because this is a very good football team and it's well put together. But you have to be able to do that. And Russell Wilson, DK Metcalf, and Tyler Lockett take advantage of those times when you make those mistakes, when you don't execute what you're supposed to do. So you got to lock it down. You got to make sure you handle your business. And if you do, you're going to get it out with a win. Is Russell Wilson, DK Metcalf, and Tyler Lockett going to get theirs? Yeah, they are. But you know what you have to do? You just have to make sure you get it a little bit more, and you make sure you come out of this game with a win. It doesn't matter if you barely win or you win by a lot, just as long as you win the game. So get it done, beat these guys, have the rivalry game big, and put Seattle in a world of hurt in the division.
Put them in a world of hurt of the division. Put yourself right back in the driver's seat, controlling your own destiny, sitting in second place alone, not tied. Yes, 2 teams will be 3-1, but one team will have 1-0 in the NFC, and one will be 0-1 in the NFC West, which means that team that's 1-0 has the heads up, has the advantage. San Francisco, it's your time. Get it done. You know your opponent now. Cutback crew, let us know what you thought about the conversation down below, how you're feeling about the game, how you're feeling about the Seahawks, and what you're most looking forward to.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what I'm looking forward to is getting a deeper dive into the Seahawks tomorrow on Patreon. I'm really looking forward to that, and I'm excited about it. I can't wait for that. And also, we have a daily video coming out as well, and we're really going to get into the game plan, which we always do. We start breaking it down. So that video is going to really going to reveal what that game plan is, and I'm excited to get into it.
It's going to be one of the better game plan videos that we put out because we now, for the first time, have this all 22 footage of the opponent, of what they've been doing, what they just did. And so we're going to get a better dive at what has San Francisco done, what have they struggled with, where have they had success, and what is your opponent struggling with, what are they having success with, and how can D'Amico Ryan scheme it up. So don't miss the daily tomorrow. It's going to be a lot of fun. Head on over to Patreon as well if you want a deep dive look at what's going on with the Seattle Seahawks and how the Niners can maybe exploit some things, or maybe even just an insight into how the Seattle may try and attack the 49ers so you're not surprised about it on Sunday. You don't want to miss any of it. It's a lot of great stuff. It's a lot of fun over there. Cutback crew, though, we appreciate all the support. We appreciate our new subscriber down there, Ayur. And until the next one, Cutback crew and the faithful, stay safe.
Remember, the right way
is always the 49ers way.